Well, will this chubby little kid with reasonably nice fingers and I think cute, would you say cute? I mean, pretty cute. Will this kid survive his talent? He's still around, and he's still with Mr. Sullivan, so I guess he's still worth something, and let's see what happens after that. If you think about a normal kind of childhood, you know, I love it when some people say to me, oh, this kid is so talented, fantastic player, and a normal childhood. Absolutely not true. There's not such thing in a normal childhood when you have to devote yourself to a particular something, whether it's sports, whether it's music, where it's totally necessary to practice at an early age, you know. Otherwise, you know, you usually learn much faster at an early age. You know, if I were to start playing the violin at the age of 10, it would be much more difficult than when I started to play, which was at the age of 4. You know, and a lot of people start at the age of sometimes 3.5, 4, 5. That's the time to start to play so that you can learn very, very fast. But then that involves a lot of problems. You know, it involves what kind of life are you going to have as a child? I remember, you know, every now and then, you know, when I teach myself right now, I ask one of my students, what kind of life do you have? I mean, what is your day like? You know, and some of them describe their day like, well, let's see, I wake up at 6 in the morning, and at 7 I have to take a bus to school. Then at 8 I'm at school. Then I'm in school until 3 in the afternoon. Then I come home, and then I practice 4 hours. Then I have dinner. Then I have homework. That's daunting. That is unbelievable. You know, what, as any of, you know, I mean, I'm not going to have a life like that. But I had something similar to that, but a lot of kids go through all of that. And you know, you have to really want to do something very badly, or, of course, get pushed by your parents. And there is another point that we can talk about like for 5 hours. Parents. When I was growing up in Israel, before television, there were a lot of shows on the radio that had, you know, it was like a panel show. There was one show called that was like, Whose Line Is It Anyway? And the panel was given assignments to, you know, to write a story about a subject, etc., etc. And one of the assignments was to write a curse. And a curse that would have a little bit of humor to it, but yet some reality. And you know what the winning curse was? The winning curse was, may your son play the violin. And it's not too far from the truth, because sometimes it can be a real curse. Because, as I said, there's so many things that are involved in that. And then, of course, comes the main challenge. And the main challenge is evaluating the talent. You know, now, just because it depends what is your father and mother. I mean, do they have a background in music? Do they know what they are hearing? In my case, neither my mother nor my father were musicians. They liked music, but they were not musicians. And the only way that there was something there that they thought that maybe I could do it is because I said to them, I'd like to play the violin. Why did I say that? Well, we listened to the radio, and at the radio usually there was nothing much going on as far as pop music or anything like this, maybe a little big band, but there was a lot of classical music. As a matter of fact, overtures by Supe were considered the pop in the radio. You know, I can imagine that. The Light Cavalry overture. I don't know if any of you know the Light Cavalry overture. It was very popular, you know, depending, it's all relative what's popular. But anyway, I was listening to violin playing, and I would say, I want to play the violin. I was also told by my parents that I would be able to sing and repeat stuff that I heard on the radio. Anyway, they had a good sort of sense that I wanted to do that. But some people maybe not, maybe they think if somebody plays and puts the bow on the string, oh my goodness, they're talented. So the value, the evaluating of the talent is extremely important. When we talk about surviving the talent, you know, can you can you really stand practicing? You know, a lot of kids sometimes they say, oh, I love music, I love this, but I don't like to practice. Well, unfortunately, you need to. And so I was forced to practice. You know, my parents forced to practice. My plan during the day was fairly moderate, but still when my friends heard what I had to do, they thought it was amazing. I practiced basically 3 hours a day since I was, you know, from the age of about 7. It was kind of 3 hours a day. And my plan during the day was like this. My teacher gave me this special assignment. 1 hour, the first hour was scales and exercises. How boring can that get? But I had to do that. Then the second hour was etudes. So that's slightly less boring scales and exercises because there are little pieces. Do you know etude? Do you know? Has anybody heard of a composer named Kreutzer? Well, I'll tell you about. Well, you know, I see that you haven't really heard about Kreutzer. Have you ever heard of Jack Benny? Jack Benny? Yes? You know? Okay, fine. All right. So I'll tell you you know, you're probably wondering what is how is he going to get out of that one? You know, and Jack Benny and Kreutzer. So let's see. If you've ever seen Jack Benny and his programs and heard him go. Yes, you heard that? All right. That is Kreutzer Etude number 2. Not number 1, number 2. So anyway, so I did that. And then the third hour was my favorite because it had stuff, you know, my you know, little songs or little pieces that I would play in, let's say, a little student concert. Oh, yawn, 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 yawn. So, okay, so that was 1 hour of drudgery. So the second hour I had those etudes, and I found out that there was an etude that my teacher gave me for exercising of the bouncing bow. Bouncing bow, you know, was a fantastic etude. You know, it went like this. You know, so I had a great time with the bouncing bow because I had a good bouncing bow. You know, I was very loose, you know, I had a nice bouncing bow. So I didn't really need to practice that, but it was so easy. So I kept practicing that, you know, while I was doing it, I was looking behind me because there were some kids playing in the yard, you know, so I was going like that. And you know, and the time went by so quickly. It was, when I talk about a career and people say, if I could only have a chance, let's say, to play with this orchestra, I would really be rolling along, you know. And the thing is, I always say, it's not the first concert that you give. It's when you get rehired. That's the important thing. It's not the first time. First time, everybody will give you a chance, but the second time is when they don't have to rehire you, and they do. And that's how careers are made, you know, and that's up to you. That's your job, is to, once you reach a point where you can actually play concerts. Now, the problem is that you have to excuse me because I'm waiting for a call from Mr. Beethoven, and he's not here. Okay, you'll wait. Thank you. He's now decomposing, by the way. That's another lecture. But now, what happens when you are now, you are graduated from your music school, you know, you leave home, and what do you do now that you are supposedly playing very well? You know, what is now the next step? What do you do with your life as a musician? And is the final obstacle that we're talking about survival. Because what happens, it's very interesting about musicians, and specifically about instrumentalists. Once you leave your teacher and you leave your school, you don't have a coach. You know, I mean, when you think about golfers, yes, they have a coach. Tennis players, they have a coach. Pitchers in baseball, you know, they've got a pitching coach. Even singers have singing voice coaches. But fiddle players, pianists, instrumentalists, we don't have any coaches. So it is really our job to see how we can develop. And that's, I find, extremely, extremely difficult. Without music, there's nothing. There is nothing. If you... I'll tell you, my wife Toby, she always says, and I think she is right, she says, the last thing, if the world comes to an end, the last thing to stay there is Mozart's Don Giovanni. You know, no, the thing is, no, seriously, music is really the soul of society. We would be so much poorer if there was no music. And the thing is, it has proven, people also talk about classical music and say, what's going to happen to classical music? Oh my God, what's the future? My God, classical music has been here for a couple of 100 years. I think that we have a good track record. I think it's going to go on, I mean, maybe with more difficulty, but it will go on. And I'm here to tell you that when I listen to kids from the Perlman music program, such talented kids, music's definitely going on. And a lot of them are surviving their talent.